Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the latest edition of VGR Lockdown. I'm your host, Steven. So, I'm going to just go right into things. Big things coming out of this week. So, allegedly, there's some major beef right now going on between Booker T and Corey Graves. All of this actually has resulted into Booker T being pulled off the Monday Night Raw announced team, and he has been replaced by Jonathan Coachman. It was weird to hear that Booker was pulled off. I thought it was more than likely to do with Jonathan Coachman coming back to the company, and they just wanting a good spot to stick him in. But when I heard about this whole Booker T Corey Graves stuff, you know what? I can see it. Just watching every week, I think that Corey Graves might actually be a bad thing for the announced team and for the company altogether. Typically, what happens if you haven't been watching, and part of it might be Booker T's, problem as well, is that Booker makes a lot of mistakes on commentary. Corey Graves pays a lot of attention to what's going on, whether it's what the other announced team members are saying, what wrestlers are saying in the in the microphone during their interviews, or what they're doing into the ring. Corey Graves pays a lot of attention, but for whatever reason, he feels the need to point out every single solitary person's mistakes, to the point where I almost feel like he just sits there waiting for that moment that somebody makes a mistake, just so he can point it out. And I think this is probably what has led to that bad blood right now in between Booker and Corey. And it gotten to the point, so it got so bad that the reason why Booker T was pulled off the commentary team was pretty much they felt like Booker was going to beat him down. Now whether this is true or not, we may never know. But hey, just thought that was crazy to hear about. So, other things. Last week, big week, we had the 2018 Royal Rumble, which also included the first Women's Royal Rumble at that. And we had, a good amount of surprises. I feel like the Women's Royal Rumble definitely had a lot more surprise entrants than the Men's Royal Rumble. Part of that, though, was due to there being a 30-woman Royal Rumble, and they only have 17 female wrestlers on the main roster. But, last week we had a couple surprises during the Rumbles themselves. We had the NXT champion, Andre Almas, in the Rumble. Out of nowhere, after he lost his match, Sami Zayn took Ty Dillinger's spot in the Rumble. We had appearance by the Hurricane. We had Adam Cole in there still selling his injuries from NXT TakeOver. And then, of course, we had a very in shape Rey Mysterio. I'm hoping that turns out to be more than just a one-night return. Rey Mysterio definitely came back in incredible shape. I really haven't seen what he's been doing in like a Lucha Underground or anything like that, so I was shocked by how well in shape he was. To me, he kind of looked like he did back in the late 90s, back in the Cruiserweight division. And, at this state, I'm hoping that they bring him back. And, a lot of people may not agree with this, but I'd really like to see him on 205 Live. I know my cousin, Aaron, will probably disagree. But I feel like Rey Mysterio at this stage, he has nothing else to prove. He's a Hall of Famer. So it would bring a lot of eyes over to 205 Live. I'd love to see him do that. Moving on, in the Women's Royal Rumble, you had a lot of surprise entrants. You had Lita, Tori Wilson, Molly Holly, Michelle McCool, Vicky Guerrero, Kelly Kelly, Jacqueline, the NXT Women's Champion Ember Moon, Beth Phoenix, both Nikki and Brie Bella, and of course Trish Stratus. So a lot of surprises there. I definitely have to say, Tori Wilson, Molly Holly, Michelle McCool, Kelly Kelly, Jacqueline, even Beth Phoenix and Trish Stratus, all still in fantastic shape. Lita was a little bit rough around the edges, but a lot of those women, they were, they've kept themselves in great shape, to the point where I wouldn't be surprised if you saw some of them come back. It's probably doubtful just at this stage in their life, but uh, now just besides the surprise interest, I do got to come back and bring this down a little bit. Last week also had a whole bunch of terrible, terrible, terrible booking decisions. This writing team, it seems like they take 2 steps forward, 5 steps back. And just going into the terrible booking, I mean, the biggest downfall in their booking last week was definitely having Dolph Ziggler in the Royal Rumble, coming in at number 30. Now, if he was going to win it, as we all know now that Nakamura won the Men's Royal Rumble, but to have Dolph Ziggler in it made absolutely no sense. While sure it was a little surprise entry into the Rumble, especially since we haven't seen him since he vacated the United States Championship the night after he won it, pretty much. But to have him in there made zero sense. Now, if they were going to have him win it, that would have been a totally different story. But to have him come in and just be eliminated, I feel like that was just such a waste. We got no resolution of whether or not he is actually, done or not. It made zero sense whatsoever. The other big thing, and you know what? A lot of people might disagree with me, but I felt like having Ronda Rousey come out at the end of the night was a huge mistake. And, granted, I guess they wanted to end the Royal Rumble with a big surprise. To me, it definitely diminished the whole purpose and special feeling of that Rumble. I was shocked that the Rumble went on last. But, with Ronda Rousey coming out now, I'm wondering, did the Rumble go on last because they had faith in the women's division to give them that spotlight? Or was it that they put the Rumble on last to have that Ronda Rousey moment? And if it was to have that Ronda Rousey moment, you know what? That's just a terrible booking decision. The other thing I didn't like is that, this is the first ever Women's Royal Rumble. Asuka won. She was in the middle of the ring with Charlotte and Alexa Bliss, pretty much potentially to pick who. She wanted the challenge at WrestleMania for the belt. And Ronda coming out, you just stole her spotlight. Like, this moment wasn't about Ronda Rousey. She wasn't even in the match itself. This was about the female wrestlers within the company. This was their first Women's Royal Rumble. Asuka was your first winner. You got your champions, all in the ring. This was their moment. And throwing Ronda Rousey in there, while, it was a nice treat for the fans, and it got a lot of press, I think they could have held off, especially since Ronda Rousey came in, pointed at the WrestleMania sign, no talking, and she's gone. She'll still be off filming her movie that I don't think even wraps up production until the middle of March. So while she'll be there for WrestleMania, we're not going to see her for at least 2 months. So that felt pointless altogether. Other thing, same night, you had the Usos versus Shelton and Gable. And for whatever reason, they decided that the Usos should clean sweep Benjamin and Gable. Now, it makes the Usos look strong, but I felt like that was a little unnecessary because they're already strong. They've pretty much dominated the tag team scene on SmackDown all of 2017, and they're still champs. It's going into February now. That clean sweep was a big mistake. Definitely sent Gable and Benjamin, on a step back and kind of made them look bad, especially how it happened. And if you didn't see it, Usos won the first fall. Then, in retaliation of that, Benjamin and Gable pretty much beat down one of the Uso brothers and had one isolated in the ring by himself, dead to rights. And the Usos squeaked out the win by himself with the roll-up. It made them look incredibly stupid. So whoever made that decision needs to be slapped. The other thing, it actually happened in the Women's Royal Rumble. Um, and I'm really against this. And it's the fact that Michelle McCool, who has been retired pretty much for I can't even remember how long, she actually got the most eliminations in the Women's Royal Rumble at 5. My issue with that is that if it was Trish, I may be a little bit more forgiving because it was Trish. But Michelle McCool getting 5 eliminations, to me, it felt like that. It was a slap in the face to the other female wrestlers that are currently on that roster. Coming in second place was Nia Jax with 4. But it felt like Michelle McCool and all of her eliminations definitely got a big spotlight during that Royal Rumble. So while it didn't necessarily hurt anyone in the grand scheme of things, I just felt, at that point, you got the first Women's Royal Rumble. You should let your current roster members, make those eliminations, especially since she eliminated Sonya Deville, Molly Holly, Lana, Vicky Guerrero, and Liv Morgan. And actually 4 of those were pretty much almost, I want to say, pretty close together. Just to put that in perspective, Sonya Deville came in at number 10, Liv Morgan came at number 11, Molly Holly entered at number 12, and Lana entered at number 13. And Michelle McCool came in at 14 and eliminated the 4 people that were in the ring before her. So if that did no favors for no one, unless Michelle McCool is going to come back for another run full time, I'd be a little bit more forgiving about it. But until I get that confirmation that she's going to be back full time, it was pointless. The last thing that I really hated this week is that Rusev is now the number 1 contender for the United States Championship. Now, I'm not saying that Rusev isn't good. I'm not saying that at all. The reason why I have an issue with Rusev being the number 1 contender for the U.S. title is because Bobby Roode just won the title. So to me, I find it really doubtful that they're going to give Rusev the belt here. So while, it was a good win for Rusev winning that Fatal 4-Way, to me, it wasn't a big move forward for him. It's, you're here and you're going to fight Bobby Roode. You're going to lose. Hopefully, at least it'll meet my expectations. I feel like Bobby Roode and Rusev should definitely put on some, really good matchup tomorrow night on SmackDown Live. But I don't feel like it's not going to do Rusev any favors. I don't see it pushing him up the card. I would have definitely preferred, anyone else that was in that Fatal 4-Way to win it, but there you go. But you know what? I am happy about one thing, and it's something that they used to do a lot back in the 90s, and I really miss it. And that is the whole idea of having a number 1 contender for the title, and the person that's the number 1 contender actually earn the number 1 contendership. I've never been a big fan of, you ran out here and interrupted me while I was talking, so we're going to fight. Nah, I like the whole, having, matches, and making it feel like the whoever's getting their title shot has actually earned their spot. And that's why I kind of liked this current build-up for who's going to fight Brock at WrestleMania. And, especially since I just talked about all of the bad booking. They had a lot of good booking as well this week as well. And starting off, the next pay-per-view is, of course, Elimination Chamber. And they're building up for the men who's going to challenge Brock Lesnar for the Universal Championship. And you got a succession of matches for guys to qualify. So far, you have Braun Strowman, you have Elias, and you have John Cena. Tonight on Monday Night Raw is supposed to be Roman Reigns versus Bray Wyatt. I'm almost 100% certain that Roman's going to win that match, especially since Bray Wyatt caused Matt Hardy to lose to Elias last week. So I expect to see Woken Hardy to interfere and Roman go over. Whoever the last two participants are going to be, I'm not sure. Unfortunately, unless they go back and give him a second chance to get in, I'd really love to see Finn Balor in that spot. But it seems like he's already lost to John Cena last week, that they might pass on him. There are other options, and I don't want to see him in that spot only because he's currently the Intercontinental Champion. But they could get the Miz in there, but I'd rather see him defending his championship. The other two names that are buzzing around there is Seth Rollins, and the other is Jason Jordan. Now, I'm not sure how Jason Jordan's actually going to play into this, because the word going around is that Jason Jordan is suffering with some sort of a neck injury, and it's affecting his grip and everything else. So they may choose not to put him in that match and go with Seth Rollins, and if just Seth Rollins. And if Jason Jordan is as hurt as they're saying, I could definitely see them coming back around to Finn Balor. Unfortunately, Samoa Joe is still hurt, so they won't necessarily come back to him. And allegedly, Kane is also out with an injury as well, so I doubt they'll come back for him as well. Other stuff. You know what? Last week at the Rumble, it was actually great to see. And that was... They're starting to tease a little heel turn with John Cena. I know it's been going on for a very, very, very long time, and them never pulling the trigger. But during the Royal Rumble, when it was getting down to the Final Four, essentially, Roman Reigns and John Cena teamed up. Pretty much, had an unspoken nod of, let's get Nakamura and Balor out of this ring, and then, we'll settle up and see who's going to go and face Brock at WrestleMania. And, it got Roman the heat that Roman always gets, and it actually got John Cena a lot of heat as well. And not only are you getting that tease of John Cena potentially going heel, it actually made Nakamura's victory at the Rumble even more spectacular. Because the last two people that he had to go through to win was Finn Balor, John Cena, and Roman Reigns. But then that following night on Raw as well, despite the fact that they chose to put Cena over Finn Balor, even during that match, you started sensing a, frustration on John Cena's face during that match when he was having a hard time putting Finn Balor away. So to me, we're definitely getting, a little insight of John Cena finally going heel. I've been saying it for a while, and I think that, this whole John Cena's chase to break Ric Flair's championship record is going to drive him down that dark path and hopefully leads for him to go heel. Hopefully they don't try to go and rehash the whole start of the NWO thing, with him. But I definitely would love to see him turn heel. Speaking of heel turns as well, Sasha Banks looks like she is finally going to go back to being a heel. And I think that's definitely her best spot, being a heel. In NXT, I think that's really what got her over. That whole I'm the boss mentality. It started during the Royal Rumble, pretty much almost when she eliminated her best friend Bayley from the Rumble. And, it's kind of, I had to do what I had to do. And then that continued on the next night. Asuka being given her spotlight for when the Royal Rumble was out there. And pretty much, Banks comes out. But it was definitely very heelish. And I'm hoping that they continue down this trend and go full-blown heel with Sasha Banks, because I think that's kind of the shakeup that the Raw Women's Division definitely are going to need. Alexa Bliss has been doing a fantastic job as a heel, but outside of Alexa Bliss, Raw doesn't have any other major heel female superstars. So Sasha Banks being added to that heel mix should definitely shake things up and liven up the women's division on Raw. Other thing, you know what? The Usos have dominated the tag team division here on SmackDown, and they've pretty much cleaned out the entire division. And the only team that's left is the Bludgeon Brothers, and it looks like they're going to be coming. They're going to be crossing paths at some point, if not in March when there's Fastlane, potentially at WrestleMania. But you got the Usos and the Bludgeon Brothers coming up. It just started last week on SmackDown. Usos were in the ring talking about how they got the tag division on lock. And pretty much as they went to leave out of the ring, Bludgeon Brothers, they made their entrance for their match. Pretty much did not give two craps about the Usos, didn't acknowledge them, pretty much moved right on past them, got in the ring for their match. While as it stands, since the Bludgeon Brothers have been back on SmackDown, they haven't actually shown anything match-wise to get you real interested in that feud. But looking at the past work of at least Luke Harper alone, definitely has me very interested in this matchup. Last week was actually a very, very massive week for a non-WWE organization within the WWE, and that organization is New Japan Pro Wrestling. I know a lot of people might not be familiar with it if you just watch the WWE, but pretty much they're a Japanese organization. The reason why that last week was a big week for them within the WWE was the success of several members of the WWE Universe. Just starting off, Brock Lesnar, a former New Japan champion during that period of time when he first left the WWE. He retained his Universal Championship. You had AJ Styles, another former New Japan Pro Wrestling champion, successfully defending the WWE Championship. And then you had Asuka and Nakamura, both former New Japan champions as well, winning their respective Royal Rumbles. And despite the fact that Finn Balor didn't actually win his match, even Finn Balor, he lasted 57 minutes and 38 seconds in this year's Royal Rumble, the longest of any male or female competitor in the Royal Rumble this year. So that's 5 former New Japan wrestlers doing big things right now in the WWE. Last week, 205 Live, they finally got themselves a general manager. While I hate his WWE name, pretty much the new general manager on 205 Live is former TNA superstar Rockstar Spud. And pretty much last week they kicked off a tournament to crown a new Cruiserweight champion in the wake of Enzo Amore being let go for the company. They started that tournament off. You had Cedric Alexander win his match, and then you had TJP win his match as well. So it looks like they're off to a really good start. The only thing that I didn't like that they did with this whole tournament thing was they didn't actually show you any kind of brackets. You don't fully know who all is in this 16-man tournament. We do know Hideo Itami is going to fight Roderick Strong this week, but it seems like their entrance may be random. I'm not sure if they're not 100% certain on who they want to win it. At first it seemed like Cedric Alexander was going to be that next cruiserweight champion, and I'm not sure if the whole Enzo being gone now is going to throw a monkey wrench in it, or maybe if they're able to sign Rey Mysterio, that they plan on going that route and crowning Rey Mysterio as that new champion. Granted, they have not signed Rey Mysterio yet to a new contract. Rey has stated that there are good chances that he may re-sign full-time with the company. So it'll definitely be interesting to see where that goes. Down in NXT, it looks like they're about to be all in on Aleister Black. It looks, he's had some great matches. Definitely gets a fantastic crowd reaction and everything. So it looks like going into WrestleMania, you might see a new NXT champion in Aleister Black. I am definitely excited to see that. If you've never seen Aleister Black before, he has this mystique about him, and I can't quite put my finger on it, but it's one of those. It just has that look. He has that look of a champion, despite the fact that he's never even been the champion. So I'm hoping they make Aleister Black champion, and then at some point when he moves on to the main roster, that they actually use him appropriately, because I definitely love to see him on the main roster. So, ladies and gentlemen, hey, it's a short show. I'm down my partner, A.A. Ron. He's going to be out for a few weeks. My cousin got a new job, so he'll be out training. So I can't wait for his return. But thanks for joining me on another week of VGR Lockdown. Make sure you like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. Keep your eyes out on VGReaction.com. We're about to start getting some new content up there. Catch you guys next week.